Let's take it back to January of 2023. Argentina were fresh off the World Cup win, Chelsea were in the middle of their banter era with Graham Potter, and Benfica's Enzo Fernandez had just been named the World Cup's best young player and linked to some of Europe's biggest clubs as a result. One of those clubs was in fact Chelsea FC. And while there were strong links in the beginning, Chelsea ended up pulling away near the end of the transfer window due to a large gap in Benfica's evaluation and reluctance to let Enzo go mid-season. However, in incredible fashion, Chelsea decided to go back in for Enzo near deadline day after Enzo made his intentions of joining very clear to Benfica and seemingly went on strike in an attempt to force a move.
Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea, here we go.
Fast forward 3 years later, Enzo is Chelsea's vice captain, a staple in midfield, arguably the face of this new Chelsea, and of course a world champion. Despite all of this, amazingly, Enzo has become quite a polarizing player in the Chelsea fanbase and constantly linked to a move away from Stamford Bridge. However, I think out of all of Blueco's recent head-scratching decisions, selling Enzo Fernandez could be one of Blueco's biggest mistakes and a spit in the face to this so-called project Blueco has been trying to sell to the fan base for the past couple of years. I want to start off with explaining the line I said a couple seconds ago, the face of this new Chelsea. When you think of the face of Chelsea, in my head, 3 players come up: Cole Palmer, Reece James, and Enzo Fernandez. Reece James, of course, is an academy-bred captain, nearly won it all here, a first-ballot Chelsea legend at 26. I absolutely love Reece James, but I do think the fact he was made and brought in during the Abramovich era puts Enzo slightly ahead of him as the face of this new Chelsea. Meaning this leaves Cole Palmer, and yeah, it's pretty tough to argue against Palmer being the face of Chelsea. But I do think one thing edges Enzo over Palmer, and that is the fact that the Blueco project literally started with his acquisition. Enzo was white hot coming out of the World Cup. He was lined up for a big move in the summer, yet he still went on strike and demanded a sign for us when we were at our absolute worst. Enzo's signing and performances at the end of that season gave the fanbase the first glimmer of hope and something to cheer for in a season where Chelsea finished in 12th place. He never spoke bad about the club, and he helped install a winning mentality in the dressing room, going from 12th place to a Club World Cup win over the best team in the world, PSG. Enzo being there from literally the bottom to world champions is what I think makes him the face of this new Chelsea. He may not be our best player, but in my opinion, he absolutely is our most symbolic of this new era. In 2023, after Graham Potter was sacked, Mauricio Pochettino was brought in for the 23-24 season, and that's when Enzo began transitioning forward up the pitch, playing a more advanced and box-crashing attacking role. It was clear he was playing in positions that felt unnatural to him, and Poch being a very physically demanding manager, and as I'll speak about later on, Enzo was also playing through illnesses and injury. It was clear he wasn't fit enough to play any of these roles. So Enzo began facing criticism and questions regarding his lack of involvement during games, and considering the areas he was present during matches, his inability to rack up goals or assists. He finished the season with 11 goals and assists, and a pretty shocking 4 assists considering his profile and stature as a player. But it wasn't until next season under Maresca we saw Enzo finally look his best. After a full season of growing pains with Poch's ruthless training and an off-season of rest and recovery, he came back under Maresca's system with the same questions as last season, and admittedly, it didn't start off too hot. It took a couple matches for Maresca's team to start winning, and with Palmer moved to the midfield, it was arguable that Maresca's best midfield 3 didn't even involve Enzo when Romeo Lavia was fit. However, Enzo's elite mentality and his ability didn't allow him to just sit and complain on the bench. He began performing, racking up goals and assists left and right, and soon became undroppable for Maresca. Even when Romeo Lavia was fit, Maresca created that infamous midfield box of Enzo, Palmer, Lavia, and Caicedo inverting from right back that was able to sneak Chelsea in some title race discussions. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Chelsea fans are going to witness that again, but it was definitely a spectacle to behold at the time. Enzo finished that season with 9 goals and incredibly 17 assists, more than quadrupling last season's total. He captained the side to a Conference League final, scoring and assisting in the 4-1 win, and of course becoming world champions with Chelsea after beating PSG 3-0 that same summer. Fast forward 5 months later, halfway through the season, Enzo is playing, in my opinion, the best football of his career for Chelsea and Argentina. And with 14 goals and assists so far, he's on pace to break last season's tally of 26 goals and assists. I believe the perseverance, progression, and evolution in Enzo's game is one of the biggest examples of what this new Chelsea should be about. If Bluco wants to follow this buy young and potential strategy, what better example for these young players to have than Enzo Fernandez and Reece James spearheading this project? Two players with elite mentalities, willing to die and play wherever on the pitch for the badge. And speaking of dying for the badge, this leads me to my next point. I want to bring your attention to these images. The picture on the left was in 2023 during Poch's time after a Carabao Cup match against Newcastle. Enzo is clearly in distress. At the time, it was brushed off as an illness or a fitness issue, but towards the end of the season, before the Copa America, Enzo revealed he had been playing with a hernia for 8 months, which eventually needed surgery, and he was playing through the pain and frequently taking injections before matches. This isn't the only time he's played when he's less than 100%. Since Enzo arrived, he's played with a hernia, one working eye, a bone edema in his knee, and just recently played through an illness against Brentford that left several players out of the match squad. Last season, only one player played more minutes than Enzo Fernandez, and that was Marco Correa, who never really had a backup in his position that allowed him to properly rest. Thankfully, Reece James has also improved massively with his injuries and being on the pitch, but when he wasn't, Enzo was extremely important for the team by always making himself available and being a dependable leader on and off the pitch. Once again, I can't stress how valuable the captain and vice-captain duo of Reece and Enzo is for the squad and the project. They are two leaders on the same wavelength and get along incredibly well. It would make absolutely no sense to break this dynamic apart. Whether it's in interviews or on his social media, Enzo is always speaking out about Chelsea in a positive light. It's clear he sees himself as a representative of the club, especially to the global audience, and he wears that role on his sleeve. Apparently, Enzo even called Caicedo while the whole transfer saga with Brighton was going on, and he convinced him to join Chelsea. Maybe not convinced, but definitely persuaded him. Not only does Enzo always promote Chelsea any chance he gets, he also defends the badge against opponents who get physical towards him or his teammates. It's even become a running joke in the fan base how much Enzo beefs with ex-teammates such as Mount, Havertz, Madueke, and even Kepa. It feels like today's game has definitely become much softer. It's refreshing to see a player like Enzo always fired up against opponents in derbies and on big occasions. It's definitely the Argentinian blood in him, but I have absolutely no doubt some of that blood is Chelsea blue as well. So, with all these reports and transfer rumors constantly floating around, do I really think there's a chance Enzo gets sold in the summer? In all honesty, not yet. The only chance I think Enzo could leave Chelsea anytime soon is if an outrageous bid comes in from a club like PSG or Real Madrid that's at least 90 to 100 million. The only other way I see Enzo leaving would be if he shockingly forces a move the same way he did at Benfica. And other than reports that he was left confused by Maresca's sacking, there's no concrete evidence or reason why this would happen. But as the saying goes, there's no smoke without fire, and Enzo has been linked to moves ever since his first season at the club. And I don't think anyone out there can positively say what Bluco's next moves or motivations are. Even Cole Palmer and Reece James are no strangers to transfer speculation. I think selling Enzo would set a scary precedent, if it hasn't already been set, that anyone is up for sale no matter how important you are to the fan base or to the dressing room. We've already seen this precedent set on academy players. Bluco were single-handedly responsible for the trend of selling academy products for pure profit, and although they have seemingly scaled their operation back and there have been no real shock sales made so far, there's no telling what their next move or strategy will be. It's a new era under Bluco, and maybe even the faces of this new era aren't safe either. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, if you think Enzo has become the face of the project or not. I appreciate every single one of you who made it to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, or comment, or share. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and peace out, you guys.